The nationalist likes few things more than the appeal to history. We should do nationalism because in the past we have done nationalism. We have done nationalism in the past, so we should do it in the future. Internationalism hasn't been a big success in the past, so it will never succeed. Descriptive claims about the past are somehow twisted by poor reasoning and horrible logic into normative claims about the present. Arguing that we should do something because we have done that thing is of course a stupid argument. The circular logic is blatant. One might as well claim we should do this because this is what we do. The fact that we have done something is in no way indicative of that thing being at all good or desirable. Human history is plagued by selfishness, cruelty, and barbarism. Does that make these things worthy of embrace? I think not. If the nationalist believes tribalism should be embraced simply because it has plagued human history, then embracing these things should come naturally also. Just because we have done something doesn't mean we should do something. That doesn't logically follow. If you found out that you had been making a great mistake your entire life, a mistake that was making your life so much harder than it needed to be, why wouldn't you try to stop making that mistake? No reasonable person would sit down and say, "Well, I have always made this mistake, so clearly I should just keep making it." Any reasonable person understands that we can and should learn from our mistakes and make efforts to progress our lives and our societies. We should advance into new territory. Our ancestors did just that, and it has benefited us hugely. We are not the slaves of history, as much as many a servile nationalist would like it if we were. We have agency, and we can and should use it to move beyond our past mistakes. We should not be bound to repeat our history. We should seek to learn from it, and advance beyond it. The nationalist will sometimes attempt to claim that their mindless appeal to history is instead simply learning from history. It most certainly is not. Learning from history necessitates a productive and rational examination of historical fact and a useful interpretation of that fact. It is fine to learn from history. Learning from history, however, is very different to making an appeal to history. If learning from history leads anywhere, it leads to an overwhelming inclination towards internationalism and a complete rejection of nationalism and all the bloodshed and slaughter that accompanies it. The arguments posited by most nationalists have nothing to do with learning from history and are appeals to history in the strictest and truest sense. They are textbook examples of such fallacious appeals. Their logic is blatantly circular. Their reasoning is blatantly irrational. They are perfectly flawed. The nationalist will claim that internationalism cannot be a success because it has not been a success in the past. This is once again a flawed argument. There was a time when no nation-state existed. That time was the vast majority of human history. Yet now the nation-state stands as the dominant geopolitical entity. According to the logic of the nationalist, this should not have happened. But it did, and there is no good reason to believe that internationalism cannot occur. Every progression human society has made hadn't happened until it did, and now it stands as an irrefutable fact of reality. Many of the features of our modern societies would have seemed like outrageous fantasy for most of human history. Just because something hasn't happened doesn't mean it can't, doesn't mean it won't. If we learn something from history, it should be that. We are not enslaved to it. We are not forced to repeat it. We can move beyond it. We have no good reason to believe otherwise, and we should try to do just that. Humanity has no obligation to embrace the immoralities that have plagued it for so long. The appeal to history is a favourite nationalist argument. It sits alongside the appeal to nature as one of the moronic arguments that nationalists will reliably invoke. Be prepared for it, understand its idiocy, and show it no mercy when it is presented.